For 5 years, she fined neighbors, threatened families, and ruled her HOA like a dictator. What she didn't know was that she hadn't paid her own property taxes once. And the day I discovered that mistake was the day her entire empire began to collapse. My name isn't important, but what I do for a living is. I buy distressed properties, tax liens, tax deeds, foreclosures most people are either scared of or don't understand. I've been doing it long enough to know one rule by heart: never touch HOA properties unless you've checked everything twice. HOAs complicate things. They sue. They threaten. They lie. Which is exactly why this one listing almost slipped past me. It was a quiet Friday morning. I was scrolling through county tax delinquent properties while half listening to a podcast when a suburban home popped up. Decent size. Clean neighborhood. HOA listed. I was about to move on. Then the owner's name loaded. Karen Maddox. And I froze. If you lived anywhere near Clearwater Knoll, you knew that name. HOA president. 5 years running. She fined people for leaving trash cans out too long. Sued a family over the wrong shade of beige on their shutters. Threatened liens over parking violations measured in inches. People didn't argue with Karen. They complied. Out of pure curiosity, I opened the property file. And that's when my stomach dropped. 5 years of unpaid property taxes. Not 1. Not 2. 5. No payment plans. No disputes. No exemptions. Just ignored notices and mounting penalties. The house was assessed at nearly $400,000, and the county was preparing to sell it for a fraction of that. The irony hit me immediately. The woman who enforced rules like a religion hadn't followed the most basic one herself. Still, I didn't celebrate. Tax sales can be traps. So I did what I always do: I verified everything. Title history. Redemption periods. HOA authority. State statutes. And that's when it became clear. The HOA had zero power over tax deeds. Their bylaws didn't matter. Their rules didn't matter. Once the county sold that deed, ownership transferred cleanly. I placed my bid quietly. Through a shell LLC I always use. No reason to attract attention. $78,000. No one else touched it. 30 days later, the redemption period expired. The deed was recorded. The house was mine. I didn't rush over. I never do. But when I finally drove into Clearwater Knoll, I understood exactly why Karen loved this place. Perfect lawns. Fake stone entrance. Gold-lettered signs pretending wealth equals authority. Her house sat right in the center. 2-story colonial. White shutters. Expensive SUV in the driveway. She had no idea. I sent the certified notice of ownership change and eviction timeline. Standard procedure. 30 days. It came back unclaimed. That's when I knew she'd be a problem. So I went myself. She opened the door before I knocked, arms crossed, smiling like someone who had never been told no in her life. "You're lost," she said. I calmly introduced myself and showed her the recorded deed. She laughed. Actually laughed. "This is a scam," she said. "The HOA handles all property obligations." "No," I replied. "It doesn't. And this house isn't yours anymore." The smile vanished. She stepped onto the porch, voice dropping. "You don't know who you're dealing with." "I do," I said. "That's why I'm here." She threatened me with fines. With rules. With the board. I told her one thing before leaving. "You're trespassing." Her eyes followed me to my car like a promise. 3 days later, the HOA struck back. I received a thick envelope declaring an emergency rule change. Ownership transfers now required board approval. Backdated. Conveniently dated before the auction. Illegal doesn't even begin to describe it. That night, my security alert went off. Karen had changed the locks on my house. HOA security stood by and watched. That's when this stopped being about a house and became about accountability. I filed eviction immediately. Then I escalated. I filed complaints with the state HOA Oversight Division, the county prosecutor, and yes, the IRS. Quietly. Professionally. I also sent documentation to a real estate journalist who owed me a favor. The headline didn't go viral, but it landed where it mattered. A week later, I got an anonymous email. Check the 2019 HOA audit. What I found wasn't sloppy bookkeeping. It was fraud. Fake vendors. Inflated invoices. HOA funds routed through shell companies tied directly to Karen. Meanwhile, court day arrived. Karen's attorney argued HOA authority like it outranked state law. The judge didn't even hesitate. The HOA has no standing. Ownership is valid. Eviction granted. 2 days later, the sheriff knocked on Karen's door. She screamed. She threatened. She packed 2 suitcases and stormed past neighbors filming from their lawns. When I finally stepped inside the house, I found more than unpaid bills. I found evidence. Spreadsheets. Forged signatures. Handwritten notes targeting homeowners for fines. This wasn't mismanagement. It was predatory. I turned everything over. Karen showed up days later, live streaming, screaming on my porch. She lunged at me on camera. She was arrested on the spot. Battery. Trespassing. Disorderly conduct. Once the state started digging, it unraveled fast. Audits. Subpoenas. Indictments. Wire fraud. Embezzlement. Tax evasion. She took a plea deal. 9 years. The HOA was dissolved. Assets distributed back to homeowners. I sold the house 2 weeks later, full market price. Months later, I drove through Clearwater Knoll again. No gates. No guards. No gold signs. Just a wooden post near a mailbox. It read, "No HOA. Free people live here." And for the first time, it was true.